Welcome to First Immanuel Lutheran Church, Portland, Oregon. That's a message that we like to share. You have made me welcome in this month or so that I have been your pastor. I have felt so welcomed. I felt welcomed when I was here in November celebrating the birth of my grandbaby. One of the things that is part of who I have observed you to be is truly a welcoming community. So today, I'm going to challenge you to be even more welcoming. Okay? So prepared for that? First of all, I'd like to start from the basics of what is it to welcome someone? What do you do at home? Greet someone at the door, right? You say hello, you welcome them in. You let them know kind of the rules of the house. For example, if this is a house that doesn't have shoes, then you invite them and have a place where they can take their shoes off if they're comfortable. You know, if they're going to stay a while, you let them know where the restrooms are. You let them know where the food is. You know all that stuff, right? To welcome someone into your home. Do you? I'm waiting for nods. I can see all of you, and I know you can see me. So this is, I'm looking at you folks. We welcome. We have ways of welcoming that are culturally our way. Lots of other cultures have ways of welcoming that are different. And that's part of something for us to learn, what it means to be welcoming culturally appropriately. We welcome here at the church on Sunday with greetings at the door, with our name tags, with greeting each other as we do the sign of peace before we begin our meal. This is just like at home. You get to know everybody before you eat together. That's why we have the sign of peace in the middle of the service. And I have a little story to tell. When I was not a pastor, I was at my home congregation. I was sitting in the middle, and a couple of visitors came in, were sitting in the pew in front of me, and when the sign of peace happened, it was a small community, and everybody just went to each other to say hello. And these two ladies turned to each other and said, "Is the service over?" So one of my things as helping people welcome each other here is to guide you to say a quick hello during the peace, and then continue the welcome in the fellowship hall. So when you see me when you feel like I'm cutting you off during the sign of peace, it is actually an act of welcome, I hope. Let's look at definitions. I like to start from words and what they mean. So the Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines welcome as a transitive verb. Okay, you grammarians, you know what a transitive verb is. I use that, okay. Transitive verb, it means that you've got a person doing and a person receiving, or an object doing and an object receiving. So that means you have to have two parts. You can't be welcoming if there's no one to welcome. And you can't be welcomed if there's no one that's doing the welcome, right? The definition in the dictionary is to greet hospitably and with courtesy or cordiality, or to accept with pleasure the occurrence or presence of. Those are the definitions. What does this mean? And where do we go to find out what this means for us? We listen to the words of Jesus. Whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet in the name of a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and whoever welcomes a righteous person in the name of a righteous person will receive the reward of the righteous. And whoever gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones in the name of a disciple, truly I tell you, none of these will lose their reward. So welcome, in Jesus' terms, includes reward. But what is that reward? The reward we get when we welcome others as Jesus welcomes is a reminder of how much more God welcomes us. How's that for a reward? Welcoming others is an opportunity to experience God's grace given to us. When we welcome someone after a time of discord, we can remember how forgiven we are by God. When we welcome someone who doesn't agree with us, we remember how God forgives us when we are not right. When we welcome someone who has felt discarded, rejected, demeaned, devalued, we remember how much God welcomes us, no matter how bad we have been, no matter what we have done. God always welcomes us back. When we welcome someone who has a story of how a church rejected them, we listen to those stories and we apologize. And we say, you are welcome here, truly welcome here. To live in God's welcome, we go beyond the definition that's in the dictionary. We go to a place of understanding what forgiveness, grace, and love are. It takes us further than just saying hello at the door. We are a reconciling in Christ community. What does that mean? We have a welcome statement at the front door there for people to see. We have the welcome statement in the front of our bulletin. Our welcome statement names a welcome to those who have often been ignored, abused, or excluded in our ELCA community, which has predominantly been white and privileged. Part of the RIC process is to look through our physical facility and to think about what it would mean for someone who is not fully privileged to be able to come into this place. And one example is restrooms. If you are a person who is transgender, the question of which restroom you go to is a challenge. So we offer restrooms that are gender neutral. They're just restrooms, right? Part of being an RIC community is continuing to learn what it means to be welcoming. The Reconciling Works website says this, and Reconciling Works is the group that works with us on our Reconciling in Christ certificate, our certification. Reconciling Works believes intersectional welcome is a lifelong journey. They say, whether your RIC faith community has been doing this work for 30 years or you joined the RIC community last month, there are always ways to deepen and expand our welcome to God's beloveds. There are countless milestones to set for your faith community as a way to welcome, include, celebrate, and advocate for people of all sexual orientations, gender identities, and gender expressions, as well as people who are Black, brown, indigenous people of color. That's BIPOC if you've seen that. This welcome extends to their families and other communities who have been othered by the church. Incorporating welcome into the life of your faith community will take time. These milestones will be reached through ongoing education, relationship building, and committed partnership with reconciling works. At this point, we are beginning the process of reevaluation, re-education, re-understanding what it means to be an RIC community in this day, in this point, at this place, right now. Because doing this work of welcome as Jesus wants us to is an ongoing process. This week, the Oregon Synod announced the return of land upon which Bethany Lutheran Church here in Portland stood since the 1950s. That land was returned to the Native American Youth and Family Center, who will be building elder housing there. The decision made by the Synod after Bethany returned their property to the Synod took 18 months. 18 months of understanding who had lived on this property, how this property had become part of the ELCA, looking at community organizations who could be served through this property. And with careful consideration and a lot of conversation on both sides, the Synod Council voted to return that property when they last met. There was an interview, perhaps you saw it on Oregon Public Radio or Oregon Public Broadcasting, where Executive Director Oscar Arana of the Native American Youth and Family Center was interviewed with our bishop. And he said, the return of the property is really not the end of these relationships between the church and the community, but it's really the beginning of another journey that we're going to take together. What it comes down to is about the power of relationships, the power of connections, and building the trust to actually transfer something like this. Arana said it had been a learning process for him as well. It's made him reflect on his own experience with religion and how his organization can work with other churches in the future. Quoting him, growing up as an indigenous two-spirit person, there was a point in my experience where I didn't feel like that was something like that was for me. Through this process, there's been an opportunity to really reconsider how we may be able to support each other or repair harm from the past. How are we welcoming as Jesus wants us to welcome? How are we here at First Immanuel doing that? I invite you to look around, to see the places where maybe we've made decisions out of fear. I've heard lots of stories about the things that have happened on this property with people who are unhoused and how dangerous this space has been. Yet when our doors are locked, no one can come in. Not us, not others, unless you have the key. So perhaps that's something we want to think about again. We're post-COVID. Are we ready to let our neighbors who maybe are seeking a spiritual place of quiet and solitude to be in this space? Can we get over our fear that something might happen? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I just have the question. As we consider God's gift of love, of grace, of mercy, that is the welcome we receive, We let go of the fear for our future. Perhaps it's time to let go of the fear for our property. Truly be ready to welcome. Thanks be to God that we are welcomed here. Thanks be to God that Jesus welcomes us at this table. Thanks be to God.